Welcome to Spiritual Psychology. My name's Renee Lavallee Mckenna, and I bring my 30-plus years as a recovering addict and ex-crazy person turned therapist and shamanic healer to bring you snackable teachings on spirituality, psychology, and all things personal growth. And today I want to talk about the most important thing in your life. And only you know what that is, and it can change over time. But knowing what the most important thing is to us at any given moment or life phase can be incredibly helpful in helping us make decisions, prioritize our time, and to know what to let go of or unprioritize so we can spend more of our energy and resources doing or cultivating what is most important to us. And I got introduced to this idea of having priorities or deciding or figuring out what was important to me early in my recovery from drugs and alcohol. And I was clean and sober for about 3 months and I had a relapse. Went out one night, got drunk, found the Coke man, woke up in the morning missing a shoe, missing my dignity, and with an empty wallet, which had not been unusual for me. In fact, in an earlier time, I might have even considered it a good night. But it had become clear to me that I was an alcoholic and a drug addict, that there was a name for this struggle I had been fighting for more than half my life at that time, and it was called addiction. And there was something that could be done about it, called recovery. But I was in my 20s and already was burdened by the cultural lie that I was somehow behind schedule, which is utter bullshit because we're actually always right on schedule wherever we are in our life. But I felt like I needed to get some money in the bank, finish my college degree, go to the gym, and get my health and cute figure back that I hadn't seen in years. I had just got myself a new boyfriend, and getting laid was always very important to me. And somewhere in the midst of working 2 jobs, taking 3 college classes, working out and staying up late with my new boyfriend, I had to find some time to do this recovery thing, whatever that meant. And so I was kind of able to hold all that together in my usual chaotic, stressful, do everything at the last minute kind of system I had been using to move through my life. And somebody pissed me off or hurt my feelings one day and I said, fuck this. And I went to the bar and I got drunk. It was unexpected and unplanned and nothing terrible happened, but it really derailed me. It was my own personal introduction to the principle of step 1 in the 12 steps, that I was powerless and my life was unmanageable. It was obvious that my life was unmanageable, but I didn't like the idea of being powerless. That wasn't even really a word in my vocabulary. Powerless. And I did a podcast on the 12 steps for everyone if you're interested in a deeper explanation of the principles behind each of the 12 steps that can benefit all of us. Episode number 61. And up to that point, I think I believed that if I just threw enough willpower at something, I could make it happen. But that wasn't working so good anymore. And I was in therapy with this Jungian therapist. She had this awesome sand tray and hundreds of little toys, and we'd make little dioramas of my emotional state in my dreams. It sounds kind of stupid, but it was pretty amazing and deep. Really allowed me to connect with my emotional and my more non-rational self in a way I had never been able to do before. I spent most of my time in my head and my ego, which wasn't serving me very well. My ego was not my amigo. And so my therapist suggested I might even need more help. And so I went to the Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission. They had an office on Hancock Street in Quincy. And they had me fill out all these forms and take all these tests. And when I was honest about my drinking and my drugging and my work history, I actually qualified as a Class 1 disability. Yikes. That was a shock and kind of a relief at the same time. It was this weird mix of validating how fucked up I really was and compassionately offering me the help that I needed to rehabilitate and recover. And to be honest, I don't remember the counselor's name or even what they looked like, but they gave me this incredible gift that is an incredible practical tool that I've used ever since. And I share it with as many people as possible when it feels appropriate. And it's a tool I call the most important thing in your life. In fact, I'll create a worksheet so that you can do it yourself, and I'll leave a link to that in the show notes. And the basic process is to list all the things you do or the areas of your life in order of importance. And this is a dynamic, living document or list that may change over time. In fact, it probably will. But it is invaluable at any point to know what is the most important thing in my life and the order of importance of the things that follow that. And this was a revelation to me. I value my creativity, my spontaneity. At that point, I still thrived on a certain amount of chaos. And I had almost no experience with internal structures that could be helpful for me. Structure was a word like discipline, felt like something that was punishing and horrible. Ew, structure, like putting me in a little box with a lid on it. But I've come to discover that that is not what healthy structure is at all. Healthy structure actually supports my creativity and spontaneity, can dissolve my fears, make me more conscious and confident, give me clarity on what my needs are so that I can be more creative and spontaneous without all the angst, anxiety, and inner self-criticism or internal conflict that seemed to be the price of being a free spirit. I had rationalized and justified that my inner chaos, my addiction, my dysfunction actually fueled my creativity. And maybe I had learned to drive myself or be inspired by that suffering or the escape from it. But after my relapse, it was obvious that the suffering was outweighing the joy. And if I kept going the way I was going, the suffering was probably going to win, because most of my goals and hopes and dreams had just stayed that, dreams and fantasies. Without healthy structure, I was unable to bring most of the things that are good about me into the world in any kind of a useful or manageable way. And so I sat with this lady in this dingy government office, and we wrote a list: recovery, therapy, work, school, boyfriend, family, friends, exercise. And we put that list in order of what needed to be most important for me at that moment in my life. And the relapse had been an eye-opener for me, and I had enough self-honesty to admit that drugs and alcohol were derailing my ability to do any of the other things on my list. And so staying clean and sober had to be the first thing, the most important thing. Because, again, when I was really self-honest, drinking and drugging had become the most important thing in my life. And I had lots of stories and narratives that I could tell myself and others about how I was finishing school and working part-time, and it all looked really good on the outside, at least on paper. But in reality, I was partying almost every night, and if the party went too long, I'd call in sick to work, I'd skip classes, I was only doing enough schoolwork to get by, and if I was drunk enough, I'd have sex with random people, which interrupted my relationship. And the whole thing created a big old basket of shame and wounded pride that made it difficult for me to have authentic relationships with anybody, let alone get to the gym on any consistent basis. So recovery was number one. I needed to support myself, so my full-time job became number two. I did want to finish getting my college degree, but I really liked my boyfriend. And that emotional support was kind of invaluable for me at that time. So he became number three. School was number four, and this extra part-time job fell to the bottom of the list after exercise and time with family. And I was still in a place in my life where I was kind of terrified to let anything go, but this gave me a structure of how to make decisions of what to let go of. Up to that point, I had lived all or nothing. Everything felt equally important, and when I would become completely overwhelmed, I'd go out and get drunk and screw everything. And this rehab counselor taught me how we could look at this list. And again, it could be rearranged at any time. It's my list. There's no right or wrong to this. It's my life. I get to decide what's the most important things in my life and the least important. And that optimally, I'm spending my time and energy corresponding to that list. So I spend the most time doing the things that are the most important to me. And that's how I live my life into an experience of joy and fulfillment. And when I feel overwhelmed, I can start crossing things off that list from the bottom up, from the things that are least important to me. And so the next time I got stressed and felt like I wanted to drink as a relief, I was able to take constructive action rather than destructive behavior. And I quit the part-time job that was the low man on that totem pole of what's important to me. And it was an enormous relief that I didn't have to do everything all at once, that I had the power to make choices in my life to change things for the better. And very gratefully, I have not had to use drugs and alcohol to relieve my inner chaos since Valentine's Day of 1988. And there are myriad factors that are part of that process beside this list of the things that are most important in my life, but it continues to serve me to this day. And it's a practice I return to again and again on a regular basis. And it's incredibly empowering and instructive. When I got married to my good husband, the second one, I was in graduate school for psychology. I had a house cleaning business, but I was also 38, and we wanted to get pregnant right away because that clock was ticking. And I had stopped using birth control probably a year before, right when we got engaged. And I didn't get pregnant. And I got kind of nervous that maybe I couldn't get pregnant. Up to that point, I'd spent my whole life trying to not get pregnant. It was a big change to try to get pregnant. And I used to trade a lot of work with other practitioners when I was early in my own practice. Sometimes I still do that. It's fun to see what other people are doing, how they work. And I traded sessions with this woman who was an intuitive. That was a new concept for me. Didn't have a lot of intuitives in the blue-collar South Shore neighborhood I grew up in. Anyway, she said, I can sense the spirit of this baby that really wants to come in, but there's not room for them. There's too many other things in the way. And she was right. Up to that point, finishing graduate school, developing my practice as a hypnotherapist, making money cleaning houses, those were the most important things. And so I got out my list and had to reorganize my priorities. And I got to talk to my new husband about how much I would work and our priorities as a budding family. And becoming a wife and mother moved to the top of the list, followed by work and school. And I got pregnant 7 weeks after we got married. I got my master's degree when I was big as a house, 8 months pregnant. Had to wear support hose walking across the stage to get my diploma in Orinda, California, from John F. Kennedy University. It was a fabulous school and tragically closed as a result of COVID. Very sad. I loved what I learned at JFK, and I took a break from cleaning houses and seeing clients so I could give myself fully to being a new mother and wife. It was a big change, and I'm so glad that I could get my priorities straight and what was really important to me and live deeply that precious time. Because they say in motherhood, the days are long and the years are short. And I'm going to tell you that's true. My kids are big now, and I'm so grateful that I got those precious early years. And over time, that list has changed again and again. And now my work is at the top of the list. And my kids and my relationships and my recovery fall further down the line. And that will change again. But it is so valuable to know what's important to me and to be able to make decisions accordingly. And this tool of knowing what is the most important things to me allowed me to make the decision to move to Manhattan, sell all my stuff, clear the deck, and start a new phase in my life. It's been an amazing, life-affirming, inspiring experience, supported to a large extent by this simple but profound practice of deciding, getting honest about, or developing clarity around what are the most important things in my life. And so I encourage you to try this. You can click the link in my show notes for a really easy to follow download for this process, or you can just get a paper and pen and try it on your own. What we focus on grows, and the choices and decisions that we make about how we spend our time and energy determine the quality and the experience of our life. And whether you believe it or not, we always have free will to make choices for positive, constructive change at any time. Thank you so much for listening. I'm offering another round of free sessions in exchange for being recorded for my upcoming YouTube channel. So if you'd like an opportunity for a free session with me, doing spirit guide connection, inner child work, power retrieval and exchange, or some of the other profound and transformative processes of the spiritual psychology work, send me an email, info@reneemckenna.com. We can have a talk about the details and see if it's a good fit. I have lots of great free workshops coming up on Insight Timer. There's a link in the show notes to that profile. And deep gratitude to my generous supporters on Patreon and through this podcast. Blessings on your path until we meet again. This is Renee Lavallee Mckenna for Spiritual Psychology.